On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk Google Home AI, Lightapalooza, and Bravas survey. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek. This is ResiWeek, episode 457, 2 to Tango. Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matthew Scott for AVNation.tv. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, we have Katye McGregor-Bennett. She's the president of KMB Communications. How you doing, Katie?
I'm doing well for a Monday.
For a Monday? I love the qualifier. Yeah. Well, it's a Monday, and we're doing...
Ask me later.
The other gentleman joining us today is Mr. Chad Russell. He's the director of sales for residential over at Ametek. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. For November.
For November. We are all patiently awaiting December and snow, so it'll come soon enough, hopefully. All right, we are going to kick this off with a story that comes to us from CE Pro. And actually, sorry, just before I do, we are recording this on the 11th. Happy Veterans Day, happy Remembrance Day in Canada, happy version of Remembrance Day you guys do in the UK. I can't remember what it's called. My apologies, but all of those things, thanks to everyone who served and works in that world. All right, coming to us from CE Pro, Google expands Gemini home presence while Alexa AI's launch gets pushed back. The Gemini mobile app, currently only on Android, will include will include the Google Home extension, which allows users to control smart devices with their generative AI. What that means is you can use, again, the Hey Google wake word, and in theory, use some natural language to trigger an action, i.e. set the dining room for a romantic dinner date, set the AC to a good temperature for sleeping, so like 65 degrees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it will do its thing. As I mentioned, Amazon's is coming, but it has been pushed back at the moment right now. I guess there's a new deadline sometime in 2025. Katie, let me start with you on this. I love seeing this, and this gets me excited for a practical use, for AI in the home. I'm curious about how well it will control your home and also the flexibility / configurability that you'll have, i.e. if it says, if you say, hey, set it to a romantic dinner date, and it drops the lights to 25%, but you only have, a couple of little lights, and all of a sudden you can't see your food. How well will it learn what you're actually looking for? Do you see this as promising, or do you see this as gimmicky?
So I'm going to go with promising, but I think that, like all things, the pain, the pain and suffering that's going to occur in the process of learning, and by I mean machine learning and human learning, how to have the machines do what we want them to do. To your point, AI and machine learning, two different things, right?
Yes, they are.
I'm surprised you haven't already jumped in on that.
I was going to be good today.
Darn it. But I do think, as much as I love to see the progress of technology and bringing, sort of the cool and the wow factor down to the masses, what does concern me about this is the negative experience that's going to occur until the lessons have been learned. And even with the higher end systems that are professionally installed and integrated, until you know how to utilize them, you may not get the result that you're hoping for. And some of that is natural voice, and some of it is just the complexity of the commands or the order of the commands. This is great, but a romantic date night for me, well, I don't know about any of you guys here, it might be totally different than a 25-year-old wanting to have a romantic date night. In fact, I probably think at 52, it's going to be very different than at 24. So who's the brain in the room that's going to determine what my romantic date night looks like and sounds like, right? But that's, of course, where then the balance is professionally installed and maintained systems. That's the advantage and the plus up and the benefit and the draw to doing what we do. So I do like it as a springboard. I'm just worried about consumers having a bad experience and not giving time to the right type of installed and integrated systems to provide an even better experience, So conflicted.
All right, Chad.
Yeah, I do. I think that even me at same age as Katie have different versions of what that date night might be, right? No,
It's having a babysitter to watch the kids and literally doing anything.
But, I think that one of the things is, I think it's promising. And I think that one of the things of, and I hate saying, those cliche things like the tide raises all ships, but I think that as people learn and become more exposed to it and they use it, then they're going to start to understand the shortfalls of it, because I don't think that Google, Apple, and Amazon have the bandwidth and understanding to really know what we're doing in the channel. Yeah, my little brother thinks his Apple HomeKit is the greatest thing in the world, and he'd always try to flex on me from when I was with Josh about what he can do. And I was like, yeah, but you can't do this. He's like, oh, I'll just do the command twice. And I'm like, and because you can't do compound commands and you can't do those things. But I think that what always gets us in trouble is undue expectations. And I think that management of those expectations is always the key. I've gone pretty deep prior to coming on today to try to find out more about it. And it's pretty ambiguous about what the capabilities will be.
Yeah.
And it's always limited to, of course, the integrations. I mean, you put on your dreamer hat. Yeah, I'd love for just be able to say whatever and have it work. And that was a lot of the things that at Josh, we tried to change is you can't just say anything. You have to understand the topology of how it works. And if you put the expectation of what you want before your understanding of how it works, then you're just going to get frustrated with it. And so ultimately, I'm excited to see what it'll do. I can't wait for the day when you just plug everything in and it goes and it just works, right? And it just knows. And I think that day will be upon us one day, but you'll still need us to hook it up and explain how it works and, of course, troubleshoot. But I'm excited for what it'll be able to do. And I think that, it's an and, not an or, right? I think that you still need our other integrated devices. You still need the integrated systems. And it is exciting, though. AI is mind-blowing to me where it's going.
So let me ask you guys this, though, because I'm going to kind of compare this to the Xfinity voice remote, which was kind of one of the first voice remotes that came out, I think, as you're giving me the look. Again, I'm in Canada, so it's a little guessy, but they had, essentially the set-top boxes had the little microphone that you could speak into and say, find for me golf, and it would find golf and just put it on. And then I would go to sell a system that was fully controlled, fully automated. And all the customer would ask me is like, yeah, but I can like push a button and talk into it. And I'm like, no. And again, I'm not comparing that directly, but what I'm saying is, if this comes out and it does 75% of what your average consumer is looking for, when you then go to quote your bigger system from any of the big automation companies, how is that battle going to potentially be if they're doing stuff, again, maybe to 75% of what you're looking for, but they're doing it in a box that, again, is a $50 box?
I think it's interesting. It's one of those. I mean, there's a lot of ways. I'm like step like I feel like I'm walking through a minefield on this. But
danger, Will Robinson, danger.
I think on the Android platform, I like the Android platform on my TVs. I wish it was integrated, and I will say that. But I jumped to Roku because, I use Josh and I use that. I think that is an interesting thing that I didn't really think about. And I always had people.
It's interesting to watch.
Being able to.
And again, I'm not trying to, I always sound like I'm trying to kick the industry a little bit, and I'm not, but it's a conversation that I don't think is had enough of. I have firsthand experiences, multiple, like weekly with customers that will not buy an automation system because they want the voice remote. So we're not selling remotes because in my company's case, our vendor doesn't have it.
Yeah. The way I got around that is like, it was watch cable, then you pick up that remote. And because how many people were buying the TPMC 3X and they buy it, but they never use it because they want to use that remote for that specific thing. And I'll tell you, having access to that content in the way that the Xfinity remote did was pretty fantastic. 'Cause I didn't know I didn't know what channel the game was on. It was way easy. Scrolling is the
So it'll be, I'm hoping that we can find a way to leverage this as an industry a little bit better than we did when Alexas first came out. There was some cool stuff, but it'll be fun to watch. All right, let's change topics for a second. This comes to us, excuse me, from Residential Systems. What to expect at Lightapalooza 2025. This is coming up very quickly out in Dallas. Go read through the article. It covers the changes that are being made to the space, to the experts, and that there's always more to learn. I want to focus on two key things real quick. One of the things that they're doing this year is they're going to have a series of breakout rooms that allow some of the manufacturers to demo their lighting products in a controlled lighting environment, opposed to the floor where, again, as dim as they could make it, you can never dim it low enough to properly show that and still have safety and all of those fun things. Chad, let me start with you. Is that going to be kind of the direction we need to go moving forward when it comes to lighting? We've done it in audio for years. We've known you have to have a room that you can control to demo audio. Lighting hasn't got there yet. We still see it all the time in a show floor or in a showroom, just in the middle of the stinking showroom with all the other lights on going, look how low it dims as everything else is bright.
Well, if you look at the companies that are doing it right, you look at Lutron, Ketra, they got their Ketra experience, and they take you into those rooms, and it's an experience. Coastal Source did a great job at CEDIA, and like when you walk through their experience outdoors area, really amazing job to kind of showcase that. And to see what they're going to be doing this year differently at Lightapalooza, I think Tom and team have done a fantastic job on trying to make that better and hit the areas that we haven't hit well. And I think that that's going to be a really cool way to experience and really see the differences. I mean, if you don't know the difference, on what those products can and can't do, especially in the dimming, and being able to see what, warm dim means, or what you get in with getting into, the Ketra capabilities and stuff like that. You need to be in a controlled environment for sure. And I love what they're trying to do. I feel like that show is very strong, and that if you're not going, you should probably think about going. And I think that there should be a much larger presence there. I'm happy to be part of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, Katie. I love the fact that Lightapalooza has really led the way in education on lighting and lighting design, not just the integration side, because we, as an industry, we kind of understand that the need to integrate, maybe not how to do it properly, but I won't kick that nest yet. One of the things that they're focusing on is the science of it, really getting into what circadian rhythm actually means and how it's applied, the luminous effect, a lot of different things. They're getting, as Doherty says in the article, really nerdy in the keynote, even getting into the science of it. The question I have is, are we leaning into the science almost too much? Because for better or worse, we're kind of a bit of a nerdy scientific industry. We love getting into the numbers and just all the specs versus the art form of using lighting to paint a space, which to me is the side that I think it's untapped for our industry, being artistic with light in a space and using that as a differentiation factor against everybody else who's trying to play in the lighting space.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. There was a whole lot of commas in all of those. But so I'll try to remember all of where the questions came in. But I think one is, are we leaning in too heavily on the science? I'll say no. Because until or unless we understand the science behind the technology that we're selling, that some may not be able to see or understand the true differentiation and therefore the price point difference. If we don't understand the science, how can we deliver a compelling sale presentation to somebody who is going to be skeptical because they can't see it, they don't feel it, they don't hear it, they've just seen the news, they've just seen the headlines, all the things. Science is what helps to differentiate the conversation and taking it from aspirational to necessary. And without it, it becomes very subjective. If you don't have the sales skills to navigate that without utilizing science, you are bringing too much subjectivity into the conversation. Very few are going to believe that and go for the sale, and which opens up a much bigger conversation, which is sales skills are at an all-time low in the industry. Events like this are helping increase. So science is good, but Lightapalooza is an education-first event, and I think that's one of the things that, even through the article, but there's so much more education. Start taking a look at the course, the outline right now. That's the beauty of Lightapalooza, in my opinion.
So let me push back for 1 second, though. We have been told for the last number of years that we have to stop selling audio based on specs. We have to stop selling video based on specs. We need to sell the experience. And you just told me that we need to sell lighting based on specs. And no one cares about specs. Even my gearheads that I sell TVs to, they care. They don't understand what it means. They just need to tell me what one they think they should get. And then we go, yeah, that spec's the one you really want to pay attention to. That's the one you need.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I've been on that soapbox quite a bit on a number of topics. I think, and Chad, you'll appreciate this one. It's in the power category. Well, why do I need power? Well, it's just going to make your stuff work better. That seems to be the line that a lot of sales reps fall back on as to why you need to address power in the home. That's the worst excuse ever to sell power, but that's what we fall back on. So my point about science is, when you understand the science, you can better deliver a sales presentation that's going to be more compelling to whoever you're selling to. And you got to know your audience in order to know how much of the science to bring into it, or just how much of the knowledge that the science provides to get them to understand why it's needed, not just wanted.
Yeah, I think that what you're getting at is the designers and engineers of the system need to understand the science. The sales guy needs to know how to deliver the impact, the wow factor, and make the hair on the arm stand up. And I think that
I am not against teaching. By no means, don't misinterpret my negative aspect on the science. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need, and again, I've been playing in lighting for almost 25 years now. We need people to understand the science and then forget it when they're talking to a customer. Because you can even go, if you guys have paid attention to Home Depot, for example, 5 years ago when you walked in, when LEDs had really, started to cover the shelves everywhere, every single case showed a Kelvin temperature. Every single one. Now, go find it on a Philips bulb. You will not find it. It is not anywhere on the package. It is soft white, warm white, cool white. That's it. And depending on the fixture, that cool white might be 4,000. It might be 6,000. It might be 5,550. It's ridiculous.
I know I like 3,500, man.
37.5 isn't bad either.
You renegade. 2,700 across the board, warm dim to 18.
We could make an auction out of this.
I like it moody. Oh, see, I don't think Gemini's not going to understand that. They're going to put it to 3,000 and be like, oh, it's great. No, it's not. All right. Last story from our good friends at Residential Tech Today. There's a Bravas survey where customers seek improved integration and support. Bravas is a multi-city provider of smart tech for luxury homes, and they did a survey of their customers. And there's some interesting things in there. Specifically that 69% of homeowners felt that their architects or builders did not adequately address or explain the role of tech automation in the planning and construction process. 59 said that their architects and builders lacked the necessary knowledge, etc. 62 of designers didn't understand how to fully grasp the integrated smart home. None of these numbers surprise any of us, with the exception of the fact that it's a small sample size because it's Bravas customers. Katie, when you see this, again, we're not surprised that these are the numbers. I'm a little surprised that in this demographic, the numbers are so high. Does it shock you, or should we just?
So a little bit of both. I think, and I've answered this question a lot over the years in doing these programs with you over different surveys and polls and things. The devil's in the details. So how was the question asked? And that's one. Because how the question is formulated will help derive how the answer is provided. But I'm also too is how many people understand what a device is and are actually including that knowledge in their responses. And I think that gets to be a little bit confusing because, in my house, I know how many devices I have, but if you were to ask me how many am I using, I may or may not remember to include all of the appliances, like all of the other things, because I don't necessarily think about it. Right. So, I think I love the data points that come across here, but, I think to get too deep into the scrutiny of it, then we start to derive the wrong result. The bigger thing is just, for me, from a marketing perspective and communicator, is go to the end of the story and I ask you, so what are we going to do with this information as an industry? Because this is a huge amount of people that need us desperately. So what are you going to do with this to market specifically to the needs that these polls are pulling for us? And how simply can you get in front of a customer based on, have you had a horrible technology experience in your home? I bet you have. Let us help you. That's not the language you're going to want to use, but something as simple as that, as opposed to trying to use our language to wow and entice you into wanting what we're selling. How about just getting right to the core of the issue? Does your home work as you want it to? We can help. So I think, again, I love these things because it squeezes out of the other side with the opportunity that we have. And it's just a matter of what are we going to do with it?
Chad, as an industry, and again, I hate asking this question because we've asked it hundreds of times, but what do we do with this? Because this shows that, and again, I kind of have a decent idea of what a Bravas customer is. And by extension, I know what that means for the architects that are working on those homes and the builders that are building those homes. These are not track homes. These are not your run-of-the-mill, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath with an unfinished basement, 2-car garage, right? Like, these are some decent properties that take some quality people who, given these numbers, those are the leaders of in theory, the building and the architectural and the design community, and they don't seem to care about tech. I feel like we've preached to them enough. What do we do?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, so when I was in Aspen, I would do this stuff, and I was with 40 architects probably every other month, meeting with them and going over all of this, and it just kind of glazes over. What they're focused on is, I think to a certain extent, and after going through my own remodel, I think that we all just kind of go through fatigue, and there's certain things that we're not interested in, we don't pay attention to. And then you put the homeowner at the end of that as the end result on a survey. And they're tired too, because they've made all these decisions and what type of flooring and what type of this. And then you go out to this all-encompassing thing, and you get a feedback from them that the system didn't necessarily work. We've done, as I think a channel, a really good job of educating, increasing the capabilities, adding more and more of our components and services into the overall offering of the construction process. But I think that it's just takes time. It's like, even us as an industry, we have I've kind of figured out it's like 5 to 10 years where when a new category or a new thing comes up, that it takes us to understand it. And then you put that tech layer on top of things that advances in building construction technology and different things that they're doing, and all of this with all the overall things that customers are wanting. And I think that the other thing is our coursework from CEDIA and the registered outreach instructor, the certified outreach instructor programs haven't really advanced much in the last few years. But I think that it's everyone's responsibility to educate, not just certain people. And I'm not sure what the right answer is. And we're trying to do all the right things. And I think that right now it's maybe less serious of a gap, but the integrations have become more complex. And so I'm not sure I don't necessarily have the right answer. And I think that too, that end users don't get exposed to things like they used to. You used to see so much of this technology just in your day to day, but the retail world has changed. You don't see this stuff anywhere anymore. And who's going to walk in to an integration firm that's by appointment only and just walk in and experience stuff? And, I'll tell you what, when I was a 16-year-old kid going into Ovation, I had no business being in there, but I was a sponge learning all that stuff. And, I think that there's a lot of pieces that we need to get better at. And I'm not sure, with the state of today's kind of how we procure services is different. And, I think that there's a lot going on. I mean, if we're not careful, everyone's going to end up being on the Google Home and Alexa stuff. If we don't start educating everyone out there why we're better, and we need to step up our game on the support side and understand everything holistically from an electrical standpoint all the way to the experience standpoint to the end user. And so, it's a lot. I'm not sure. I don't have the answers. It's a great discussion point, and I think that we could talk about it for a couple hours. But in the respective,
we don't have a couple hours. Yeah, we don't have a couple hours. I'll wrap it up with this. We continually forget it takes two to tango. If the builders, the architects, and the designers don't care, you're not going to convince them in a 20-minute, lunch and learn. It's very, very challenging. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Chad, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Ametek, where can they do that?
chad.russell@ametek.com or Instagram, the Chad AI. Anytime you want to find me, I'm always on that.
You're a fun follow on Instagram. I like it. All right, Katie, my friend, if people want to connect with you, learn more about KMB, where can they do that?
They can find us at kmbcom.com or across the sphere. Really, just look for KMB Communications or KMB Com. We're the ones with the mountain logo. You'll find us there. If you want to reach out to me, I'm Katie, Katye at kmbcom with 2ms.com. Look forward to talking to you.
Excellent. Thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter or X at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek,
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.